Move over, crap. What did you say? Yes, you right now. What will you do? I won't get anything anyway. People like you are always lucky. You need to be able to sleep with men 30 years older than you, right? What did you say? Mary pushed Jane with all her strength. These two former friends simply hated each other now. Mary was blonde, Jane was brunette, but they actually had a lot more in common than they thought. Just 10 years ago, these two girls met. They lived next door to each other and could not imagine themselves without each other. Mary and Jane, their names even combined in a special way. Mary did not have a father, and in general, this topic was a sore point for her. Jane supported her friend in every possible way, comforted her, so they were friends. Then they went to the same school, and everything changed. What kind of circus do you think this is? Deciding to sort things out right in the middle of the school? Not under my guidance. This isn't a street for you. Mr. Lydon shouted at the two students sitting on chairs in front of his desk. What is the matter this time? She started it first. What? You pushed me. If you hadn't called me a whore, I wouldn't have attacked you. The truth hurts, doesn't it? Jane jabbed at Mary. Quiet. Girls, how many times do I have to tell you? If you don't stop fighting, I'll have to call your moms and invite them to the school. Is that what you want? While Mr. Lydon was writing in his room, Jane saw a beautiful notebook on the floor. While Mary wasn't looking, she grabbed it and put it in her bag. The principal then gave the two girls their notes and told them that they would henceforth attend classes in different buildings in order to avoid skirmishes in the common corridors. The girls silently took the papers and went to class. When Jane got home, the first thing she did was open that notebook in her room. She was very interested in what was written there. We all know that everyone has their secrets, and when one person owns the secrets of another, he becomes powerful, domineering. So, that's it. That explains why you're running after her like that. I thought Mary was sleeping with you. Well, it will be fun, she said sarcastically, and sat down to come up with a plan. Back at school the next day, the director confronted Jane again. Jane, it's not enough that you're late for class, but you've come against the school's dress code. Apparently, our conversation yesterday didn't teach you anything. To your office? Exactly. Can you tell me what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? You know, how long have you been with us? 7 to 8 months? You may not be a bad principal, but your close attention to Mary, your indulgences in her address reflected on me. You probably know that we used to be friends, but then our friendship ended. And when you came into her life, she suddenly decided to push me with the fact that she gets away with everything thanks to you. You're her father, right? It's difficult to say how many feelings the principal experienced at this time. But Jane had hit the nail on the head. Mr. Lydon was Mary's father, and for her sake, he even got a job as headmaster at the school where she attended. He planned to make friends with his daughter, but not tell her who he was until the time was right. At first, everything went according to plan, but he didn't know that everything could go wrong just because of Jane. You may ask why these girls quarreled in the first place. Mary had come home one day, but no one was there. Her mother was called to work, and out of habit, she went straight to visit Jane. But her friend wasn't home either. Jane's father invited Mary to join them, gave her food and water, then suddenly, Mary burst into bitter tears. You're a wonderful father, and I wish I had one. Jane's father was confused, hugged the girl, and said that everything would be fine, that she was like a daughter to them, and that they would do anything for her. And at that moment, Jane arrived home. She loved her friend and would do anything for her, but she would not share her parents. Jealousy began to bloom in her. The girls quarreled, and their friendship came to an end. Now, the director asked nervously, "Does she know?"
No.
"Don't tell her, please. It's not time yet. She won't accept me right away."
So that's why she gets so many favors. I only thought about the bad stuff.
About what? Oh my God, no. I just don't want to yet.
Okay, I understand, but I have conditions. You will do as I say.
That's impertinence, young lady.
Do you want me to tell her everything?
Mr. Lydon sighed and then asked her what she wanted. Jane voiced a couple of conditions. Now there was not going to be a dress code for her. She could be late for classes and do homework every other day and still only get good grades. She also asked the principal to make free lunches for her at a diner near the school. She knew it was his diner, so he agreed. Mr. Lydon also gave his word that he would never reveal their secret, and Jane left satisfied. Jane's life as a high school student turned into a fairy tale from that moment on. Going to school was a pleasure now. 2 weeks passed in this way. And then she and Mary ran into each other again in the hallway. Mary looked Jane up and down and said, "Did I tell you what would happen if I saw you again?
Are you going to mess with someone else's family again?"
"It's a pity that your parents have a daughter like you. They deserve better."
"And I feel sorry for your mother, who raised you alone, and for your father, who fears at the sight of you in the hallway because you're hysterical."
"What did you say? What do you mean? What did you say again? What father? Where is he?"
Look, I just wanted to hurt you. I'm sorry. I made a bad joke.
"I know when you're lying. Speak. I need to know because my mother is ill." Through her tears, Mary barely told her that her mother had been ill for a long time because she was so stressed about trying to find Mary's father in the world. And when she realized that she could not be cured, she decided to find her ex-husband. But when he met his ex-wife, he got angry. They had a fight, and the next day, Mrs. Downey fell into a coma. At that moment, Jane felt ashamed of herself. She sat down next to Mary and, just as before, put her arm around her friend's shoulders, hugging her tightly. She tried to calm her down. That afternoon, the girls spent several hours in Mary's mom's ward at the hospital, telling each other about their lives. Then, without warning, Mr. Lydon came in, and Jane left them alone.
They've made up, although Mary's mom is still in a coma, but we hope for the best. We forgave each other and decided that we were better off together than apart. My family is ready to help her mother with treatment, but I stopped ignoring the rules of the school, and I got my best friend back. Tell me, guys, did you like my story? Write your opinion about it in the comments below the video. Do not forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel.
My name is Hannah, and I recently saw my father's true identity and was amazed. It turns out that he was not who he claimed to be all these years. Now I'm not sure I love him. I'm more afraid. The fact is that not so long ago, my parents divorced, and I chose my father so that he would not be lonely. I knew that my mother was strong and she would survive the divorce, especially since it was her initiative. But my father, I was worried about him because he was always not independent, vulnerable. Even though he was in the police, when he came home, he took off his uniform and became my daddy. As for the divorce, their relationship had not been going well for a long time. I couldn't bear to listen to the daily scandals and threats. I couldn't stand it, so I picked up another broken plate and told them to get a divorce. I don't know about your patience, but mine is broken. They both froze, looked at me, and realized that it was finally time to talk to their child. We sat down at the table, but I did the most talking. I was old enough to know that part of the reason they put up with each other was because of me. But I said it was okay. Mom, I'll stay with my dad. No offense, but I'm worried about him. My mother argued for a long time and said that it would be better for me to be with her, but I insisted on my own. When my father heard about my offer, he was very surprised and happy. I've been thinking it over for a long time. It's better for everyone. Immediately after the divorce, my mother went to another country. She promised to come to me for all the holidays, which suited me. To be honest, I was closer to my father. My mother often went somewhere and we were alone, ordering pizza, my favorite snacks, and a lot of soda. The best nights were to eat in front of the TV until late at night. That was my thing with Dad. So when they got divorced, it didn't seem so bad. My dad and I sold the house and moved into an apartment. Just like before, my dad came home very late, and I was already asleep. I took care of the household chores, cleaning, washing, and some cooking. My father wasn't fussy, and sometimes he and his fellow police officers didn't have time to eat at all. So they caught criminals on an empty stomach. It was dangerous work. He was often catching the bad people, an environment which is always dreaming of revenge. The attackers found out that my parents were divorced, and I was left at home alone. As usual, unsuspecting, I ate my supper and went to bed. Already in a deep sleep, I thought I heard rustling in the apartment. I thought it was my dad coming home from work. Before I could really open my eyes, someone bumped into me, closing my mouth with such force that I couldn't move my mouth. Masked men tied my hands and feet in seconds. I was terrified and panicked, ready to scream with all my might. I thought I was going to die. My blood froze with fear, and I had a million thoughts about being killed. I prayed to God that my father would come home soon. There were 3 outsiders. They searched and turned over the whole house. Apparently, they thought that the necessary thing was stored here, but they did not know that my father did not bring anything home from work to avoid such situations. The masked men took everything of value. I was shaking and crying with horror, and they decided to take me with them before they left. My body resisted, and my temperature rose with anger. The bastards didn't care that I was a teenager. With my mouth tied, I couldn't call for help. I wish Dad would come soon, I thought for the last time. And suddenly, I saw one of the bandits fall to the floor. The second gets a foot in the face. It was my father. He's here. My eyes were still streaming with tears, but I felt a sharp sense of relief. I had no doubt that my father would save me. In a matter of minutes, he had 3 of them down. At this time, I had managed to free my hands and mouth. I sat on the floor and breathed deeply, still unable to speak. 2 were unconscious. Dad went to the 3rd one and asked what they wanted. The bandit only spat in his face, which angered my father. Dad threw him to the floor and hit him in the face with all his fury. He was already unconscious. I think his nose was broken. His teeth were knocked out. There was blood everywhere, and Dad didn't stop. He beat and beat on the head with his fists. I shouted, "Dad, stop! Stop it! Enough! You'll kill him!" Then I ran to him, but he pushed me with a bloody hand so hard that my body flew away like a doll for several meters. There was a fire in my father's eyes, as if he had passed out and was being controlled by the devil himself. It was a terrible sight. I was even more terrified than when I was kidnapped. The 2 men came to their senses and tried to escape, but my father took out a rifle and shot it right in front of me in our house. Only then did he exhale and calm down. I've never seen such a monster in my life. I became afraid of him. He saw it and understood it. I didn't speak to him for about a week, and then he called me over to talk. "I know you're afraid of me. I'm sorry you saw all this. I didn't want to, but this is how I am at work. I am a police officer, and I have to fight crime. And here, the situation was doubly terrible. These bastards tried to take away my most valuable thing, you. I didn't want you to see dead people, and I didn't want you to know that your dad can kill. But I want you to know that when I'm eating pizza with you or watching cartoons, I'm real. I will never hurt you in my life, daughter. I'm still your dad," he said. Yes, I wanted to hear those words. I burst into tears and hugged him for the first time in so long. Then he said he couldn't risk my life, so he called my mother and told her everything. A minute later, she appeared on the doorstep. "I can't risk your life. My job is too dangerous. It will be better if you live with your mother, and I will visit you," he said. I felt sad. I didn't want to leave him, but I knew that he would feel much more confident knowing that his daughter was safe. So I didn't say anything and went to get my things. I gave him one last big hug, and he said I was the only one who made him better every day. Who knows? We're all not perfect. The father in the devil's guise was protecting his child. Can it be justly justified? Subscribe to this channel because there are still many cool stories.